program. Now, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is calling on President Bola Tinubu to clarify the $3.3 billion emergency crude repayment loan secured by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Atiku, in his statement, raised concerns about the loan, emphasizing that the $3.3 billion with an interest rate not exceeding 12% is expected to be repaid with the nation's crude oil valued at $12 billion US. Atiku insists that an explanation by the Tinubu administration for such a significant financial undertaking is needed. The transaction, which was finalized in August 2023, is aimed at bolstering the naira and stabilizing the foreign exchange market, facilitated by the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank. But the presidency has hit back at Atiku, saying that he's late to the party as explanations have already been provided by the NNPCL. But despite the measure, most Nigerians are unclear as to the terms of the agreement amid the ballooning of the naira to dollar exchange rate. Well, let's cross live to our Lagos studio and speak with Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri. He's a development economist and investment banking executive. Thank you so much, Dr. Obiaraeri, for joining us. Yeah, so talk to us about the explanations offered by the presidency trying to clarify the specific issues of the SPV that was set up for this agreement. I don't know what's your own thinking about some of the answers provided to the questions raised by the main opposition leader.
Sambo, the answers provided does not make any rational sense to any honest, sincere investment banking executive or even a normal person that reasons rationally. What are we talking about here? Nigeria wanted to borrow $3 billion from Afrexim to shore up our reserves to help protect the naira from the downward spiral that has been going over the last 6 months. And then somebody is telling us that they are going to secure it with 167 million barrels of crude oil, valued at today's market price at $12 billion. Somebody need to make that make sense to me. Are the crude oil going to be given? Is it a collateral that will be returned back to Nigeria? Or are we exchanging $12 billion worth of crude oil in today's market value for $3 billion at 12% interest rate? It does not make sense. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. Nigeria is not one special purpose vehicle that was incorporated somewhere in Somalia or Yemen. 12% interest rate to a sovereign nation like Nigeria as interest rate. And of course, there are even hush-hush sounds that fees in excess of over $100 million were paid. That one had not been clarified. It does not make sense. Nigeria, as of today, has capacity to borrow $3 billion without the kind of convoluted structure that they put in place, just like what they did over this. The other day, they told us they wanted to structure $7 billion against dividend receivables of Nigerian shares in the Nigerian liquefied natural gas, which is okay. Borrowing against dividend payments, which simply means, of course, the LNG have been very profitable over time. And that is what we are also expected of the NNPC. If the federal government of Nigeria, they are very sincere, they should divest at least 55% of their holdings from the NNPC, allow private sector investors, so the NNPC can become more transparently run without interference from the political circle, National Assembly, everybody inviting them to harass them. In such a way, we can also be talking about borrowing against NNPC dividends. But the truth of the matter is that it does not make sense. Borrowing, remember that our daily output now is about 1.3 million barrels. We're even projecting to increase to 1.78 million barrels a day. That simply means we've mortgaged over 35% of our annual crude oil output just to secure $3 billion loan. It does not make sense at 12%. In fact, that structure, whatever arrangement that they've made, does not make sense to any rational reasoning in Nigeria. It does not make sense.
You make of the $65 per barrel used to calculate the allocated 90,000 barrels of oil per day, which will be used daily until we're able to get the total that have been calculated. Is that very reasonable, or do you think it should have been higher than that to reflect the current prices?
See, let me tell you, it is very unreasonable. What has been the average price of the crude oil daily prices over the last 1 year? Let us do some trend analysis simulation. And what is the projection going into the next 2, 3, 5 years, depending on the tenor of the arrangement? Come on. Nigeria is not that broke that if we want to raise $10 billion into this economy at single-digit interest rate, that we cannot do it. We can't continue this way as a country. Look at it. From May 29, 2023, the Naira has lost from 765 Naira to $1 when it was devalued. Today, it closed at 1,515 Naira to $1 in the parallel market. And there is something dangerous that we're seeing here. There's no liquidity in the market, dollar liquidity. And let me explain to you what is happening here. A serious country, a serious nation, a serious government, what will have simply done? We've been on this thing over the last 7 months. Simple things that will have been done. Why are we having so much pressure on the dollar? Simply means that this demand for the dollar far outweighs the supply. And what is driving this demand? We have outstanding obligations within the banking system. Outstanding LC obligations that are even ranking over the last 3 years of almost about $8 billion. Even the airways have over, international airlines have over $570 million out there outstanding. A serious government will have simply done an inquest. Okay, bank-wide, what do we have? We have in the portfolio $8.5 billion that had to be liquidated. These are lawful, fully transacted obligations that are being owed by entrepreneurs in Nigeria through the banking system. How do we raise money to wipe this out? When you clear these obligations, you set the ground floor parallel, the same level, and people begin to plan their purchases, their manufacturing, their raw material purchases on an even keel. Today, we have 3 issues now pursuing the dollar. We have the speculative demand. And the speculative demand here is because most investors, even Nigerians, have lost confidence and trust on the ability of those who purport to govern us, and even the institutions, to stabilize this market. 2, which is the most dangerous, the corruption demand for the dollar, which is very dangerous. Look at it. Nationwide, from the federal government to the state government, total budgetary expenditure provisions they've made was about 40 to 45 trillion. If you aggregate, the 28.7 trillion budget proposal by the federal government has been passed, and the states. And I tell you, Sambo, over 60% of these monies annually are stolen. So we are looking at critically over 24 trillion that will be taken out of this.
Well, when you say 60%,
once they collect the fact, they collect the jack.
When you say 60% of this budget are stolen annually, I mean, that will be putting, issues on a different level, because, I mean, if we had budgets being stolen to that extent, I mean, even the international financial system will be much more afraid than what they are doing at the moment.
Sambo.
Wouldn't it be an overkill for you to make such a statement?
Okay, CBI, let me give you a practical example. The EFCC chairman told us on national TV during his screening that between 2018 and 2020, over 2.9 trillion was stolen, fraudulently taken through contract over invoicing. That is just one overhead. But let me explain to you what is happening here. Why do you think that the Naira is going where it is going because it is being demanded by those seeking for lawful transactions? The answer is no. In 2022, we imported $53 billion worth of goods into this country, calculated. Now, is Nigeria a country that cannot easily generate between $100 to $200 billion on an annual basis? The answer is no. But the question is, what are we doing to show up the supply side of the dollar? From the foreign diaspora alone, we can easily get remittances of up to $50 billion. But we need to put in place the right constitutional, physical structures in place to allow this to happen. I listened to your last guest that left your studio. Nigeria is one country that can produce over $200 billion of agro commodities across the value chains, both from the upstream and the downstream areas. But why are we not producing even enough to feed this country? Because of insecurity, because because of structural deformities, because of corruption in the public sector. I give you one example on rice value chain. In 2015, a bag of rice was selling for 8,550 kg. Today, it is 45,000, 50,000 naira. And we were being regaled with stories of how CBN gave out 1.3 billion, 1.3 trillion to rice farmers. Today in Nigeria, we consume about 7.4 million tons of rice every year. What we currently produce about 3.8 million tons. Rice is something you can grow twice in a year. For us to cover the supply gap, domestic supply gap in Nigeria, all we need to do is scientifically and structurally, over the 8,809 electoral wards in Nigeria, cultivate 1 million hectares of the new Geri species rice farm. Under a structured arrangement, in 1 year, we will cover the supply gap. When supply is more than demand, prices will come down.
All right, very interesting perspective you've got there. But back to this 3.3 billion US dollar loan. We thought that the federal government, having accessed this money and had it, and with what we heard yesterday, that $500 million was released into to shore up the issues of the forex, that by now the naira to dollar exchange rate, I mean, should have been in favor of the naira. But you and I know that it's about 1,500 plus at the moment. So can we actually say that the federal government has answered Atiku Abubakar's question about if the money has been assessed by the government?
Sambo, they've not answered any question.
All right. All right, Dr. Obiaraeri there. Technology doing its thing there. We've actually not been able to get him more, but of course we will continue to wait while we get him back. And of course we've been discussing this issue right here about the $3.3 billion loan by the federal government of Nigeria through the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. And of course some of the questions raised, 5 key questions raised by Nigeria's main opposition leader and former vice president of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, who is insisting that the public deserves to know more. And of course, I'm being told right now that Dr. Obiaraeri is back. So can you just continue?
Okay, I am saying this. You know actually that there are over $8 billion letter of credit obligations in the banking system. Transactions that were consummated when the naira to the dollar was at 430. Manufacturers have imported raw materials. They've produced, they've sold. So the margins are already determined. Taxes paid. Now, these are obligations. Today, dollar is selling for 1,550 naira, which simply means the average manufacturer already exposed in the system will be wiped out. Basically, if you have these obligations, what do you do as a government that is right thinking, that is very creative minded? You would think about how you can ensure supply of the dollar to be able to clear that obligation that is existing and provide a level playing ground for every productive entrepreneur within the system. Borrowing $3 billion under a convoluted structured arrangement that will cost Nigeria $12 billion worth of crude oil, almost 30% of our daily outputs, annual outputs. When there are still obligations outstanding, let me tell you, we will not solve the problem. Even if they pump the whole $3 billion into the system, there is still about $5 billion left. What I expected when they were talking about the $3 billion from NNPC and the $7 billion for securitization of dividends of NLG, my mind was that they will bring the whole $10 billion, clear the outstanding obligations in the system, provide a level playing ground, and that is the only way you can manage this economy. Put in place structured physical arrangements that will enable dollar to inflow into this economy, and then tackle the corrupt end of the market. As long as we have a system where the political elites are running roughshod on the economy, collect FAC, collect JAC, collect IGR, begin to seek for the scarce dollar resources within the economy. I tell you, these things will hit 2,000 naira to $1.
Well, that's what we are all praying for, that it doesn't happen. Because if in 8 months we've been able to move from 700 to 1,515 naira to $1, then we are all wondering what will happen in the next 8 to 12 months. But we must thank you so much, Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, who is a development economist and investment banking executive. Well, technology didn't allow us to have enough time, but of course we do. We will definitely bring you back to help us understand some of these issues because a lot of us are actually seeking more explanation, just like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar.